you've ever turned a $50 steak into a $5 chew toy, you're probably making one of these 15 grilling mistakes. Let's fix that. AI wrote that. Crazy world we're living in, man. Let's start off with the first and most massive mistake, not slicing against the grain. On any piece of meat, the fibers run in long strands called the grain. Imagine it kind of like the long rows in string cheese, and cutting across rather than with those strands makes the fibers shorter, giving you a much more tender and easy to chew bite. You could have the most perfectly cooked, melt in your mouth piece of steak in the world and ruin it if you don't slice it against the grain. I have a video that talks more about slicing tri-tip, which is kind of a tricky cut of meat to slice properly, and we talk more in depth about the grain and how to slice against it. The second mistake is using the wrong kind of salt. I'm a bit of a salt fanatic, and I've learned the hard way that not all salt is created equal. Take Morton's table salt versus kosher salt. Since table salt has smaller, more compact granules, a teaspoon of it actually contains about twice as much salt as a teaspoon of kosher. So if a recipe doesn't specify what type of salt to go with, I would use kosher or sea salt. They're more forgiving and you can always add more later, but once it's in, you can't take it out. Mistake number 3 is not enough char on your food. You ever looked at some pictures online and thought, dang, how come my food doesn't look like that? Well, honestly, for a lot of us, we aren't getting enough color on our barbecue. Color is flavor, and that charred piece at the end of the steak is the money bite for a reason. I mean, just for starters, imagine a grilled cheese that's not crispy, or a smash burger that has no crusty edges, or a grilled ribeye with no grill marks. It's terrible, right? I know, it's hard to even talk about. You almost want to bring your food to the edge of burning, but not burn. It's honestly a fine line, which brings us to our next mistake. Number 4, too much char on your food. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. We've all been to that kid's birthday party with the burgers or lumps of coal.
Look at that, look how much I burnt that one.
Watch your food closely during the final stages, and don't walk away to do something real quick when your food is almost done. Mistake number 5, not cleaning your grill. See that? Yeah. Number 6, opening and closing the grill nonstop. Trust me, I get it. When the weather's perfect, you got a drink in your hand. There's just nothing on this planet more tempting than opening, closing, closing. But all you're doing at that point is letting the heat out, making your guests wait longer for dinner. I don't think you want to be that guy. It's particularly bad on a smoker when you can actually lose a lot of time by opening that lid too often. That grill has to regenerate all that heat back up again, and it can really slow things down to a halt. Okay, number 7, trying to sear your meat when it's moist. Wow, I hate that. Essentially, moisture prevents browning from taking place. So before you add your seasoning to your protein, pat it dry with a paper towel first, or use some sort of fat-based binder, mayo, oil, tallow. Number 8, using pre-ground pepper instead of fresh, cracked pepper. Pepper is a staple across the culinary universe, especially in the world of barbecue. Central Texas style barbecue is famous for their supposed Dalmatian blend, which is only using 50% salt, 50% pepper, although most Texas joints actually use a few other things. Anyways, when you crack fresh pepper over your food and meat, it releases actual essential oils that contain those bold and spicy flavors that pepper is known for. And whole peppercorns can stay fresh for years if stored properly. Mistake number 9, never adding oil to your grill grates. I don't know about you, my grill grates are made of cast iron, and those bad boys need some oil. I used to use a lot of canned aerosol-based sprays, but while those are fine occasionally, they contain propellants and sometimes additives, all of which create a lot of flare-ups. So instead, just use a high smoke point oil and apply some of it using a brush or towel to your grill grates. For more info on how to take care of cast iron properly, see my video on the 10 commandments of cast iron. Speaking of oil, that's our 10th mistake, using the wrong kind of it. In recent years, olive oil has become kind of a catch-all term. It's the first step in almost every recipe, but just like salt and pepper, not all oils are made the same. Olive oil is exactly what you want if you're cooking like Italian or Mediterranean food, but it's truthfully not great for barbecue. My favorite alternative is avocado oil. It's almost totally neutral and flavorless, making it great for marinades. And it doesn't start smoking until 520 degrees Fahrenheit, making it the oil with the highest smoke point that mankind has discovered thus far. Link below. Number 11, flipping your meat too soon. I've heard people say that once you put the meat on the grill, you want to be kind of moving it around constantly to keep it cooking evenly, and I say nay. Once you get it on there, let it sizzle, let it caramelize. When it's ready, the meat will self-release and it won't stick to the grill grates. If it is still sticking when you try and flip it, usually this happens with chicken, you either need to leave it on a little longer or try and add some fat into your seasoning or marinade like a good beef tallow or a good oil or even mayo. Mistake number 12, under-seasoning. Barbecue is essentially the art of taking a huge, cheap cut of meat and then making it taste amazing. And sometimes I see people with this massive 13-pound piece of cow and they kind of just sprinkle a little bit on there. No, you want to load that thing up with your seasoning, with your dry rub. More often than not, it's way easier to under-season a huge piece of meat than over-season. Mistake 13, probing too often. When you really need the food to finish and people are starting to kind of give you that, hey, it's getting really late. Look, I understand the temptation to go outside and check the temperature on the food every 5 minutes, but too much of that is just gonna slow you down. For one, you're opening the lid like we talked about, and every time you probe the meat, those beautiful cooked juices that you worked so hard for have just another spot to leak out of. Mistake number 14 is only buying pre-made rubs and sauces. I love the convenience of having these things on hand, but if you really want to go all out and impress people, having your own homemade seasonings and spices is an absolute game changer. And it can just be really fun to test out and experiment with new flavors. Our 15th and final mistake, not resting your barbecue. Honestly, I probably should have mentioned this earlier in the video because it's so important, and I'm sure some people have already clicked away, but not you. If you learned something, maybe consider subscribing. It'd be great to have you here. Now, let's talk about resting your barbecue. Skipping this step is an easy way to ruin something that took you hours to make. It really makes a huge difference. For example, every year for the Super Bowl, I smoke 2 pork butts. One gets pulled at dinner, and the other one rests for about 2 extra hours before I shred it. And every time, that second one is juicier, easier to pull, and just more delicious. If you've never tried an extended rest, give it a shot and let me know what you think. Okay, friends, peace.